The movie begins in Japan during the summer of 1945. It was 3.5 years after World War II. Despite the initial successes, Japan was still experiencing a tide of battles. The Americans had leapfrogged across the Pacific, bombing the Japing before it. After neutralizing the Japanese Imperial Fleet, they now control the B-29 Flying Fortress from the island air bases, from which they attack homelands. With all that going on, Robert Oppenheimer in America and other scientists have been working secretly for 3 years to develop a new kind of bomb. They have succeeded, but this plan is not revealed to the world just yet, and most definitely not to the citizens of Hiroshima. In Hiroshima, a voice can be heard announcing the enemy's departure, urging everyone to come out of the bomb shelter. Gen then steps out with his family, consisting of his father, Daikichi, his pregnant mother, Kimi, his older sister, Iko, and his little brother, Shinji. Gen complains of being hungry and is supported by Shinji, but their dad tells them they have work to do first. It turns out that Gen, his family, and so many in Japan live in poverty. Everyone survives on ration tickets and one meal a day. Gen is returning with his father and Shinji from the farm when they come across some marching soldiers escorting a recruit. Gen and Shinji complain again of being very hungry. Their dad then tells them they can't get any food as they have used up the day's ration. Just then, they notice some men fighting over rice porridge. After arriving home, the boys throw a tantrum about being hungry, so Kimi offers them a treat, a fat potato. However, Shinji grabs the food and runs instead of sharing it with his brother. Gen then chases him around until Iko sees them and takes the food away. Iko tells them that the food is meant for their pregnant mother. And even though Kimi tells her that her boys can have it, Iko hands her the food and drags the boys away. At night, Kimi talks about the baby kicking when Gen and Shinji rush in to see. They discover that the baby is moving and speculate whether it'll be a boy or a girl. Shinji wishes the baby to be a boy and wants him to be born soon. Later that night, while everyone is fast asleep, another air raid alert is delivered asking people to head back to the shelter. Everyone except Shinji is awake and Iko tries but fails severally to wake him up. Gen then tricks him about having a full bowl of noodles, prompting Shinji to spring out of bed. When Shinji finds out Gen is lying, they start to fight, but are immediately reprimanded by Iko, who orders them to head to the shelter. While in the shelter, Gen tells his parents they are just scouting planes. His mother then reminds him of a girl who was hit by a P-51's machine gun in Area 4. His father then points out that every area of Japan has been bombed except for Hiroshima. A while later, the air alert is cancelled, proving Gen right. The family returns to their home, where Kimi gets dizzy and falls unconscious, so Gen and Shinji rush to get to the doctor. When the doctor arrives and finishes examining Kimi, he tells them she's suffering from serious malnutrition and will be fine after eating some food. Sadly, food and medicine were almost non-existent during wartime, and to add salt to the wound, the family had no money or rice left. Iko is then left to watch over her mom. The next morning, when Gen and Shinji are washing up, Shinji calls Gen to ask him if caterpillars are edible so their mom can eat them and get better. But the thought of what might happen freaks the boys out. A man named Boku then walks up to them saying that their mom would feel better after drinking a carp's blood and eating its meat. The boys then get an idea to sneak to a nearby pond to fish for carp. They manage to catch one but are caught by the owner. Shinji is startled by the man and falls back into the pond while Gen remains on his knees as the man slaps him and punches him to the floor. However, Gen asks to be hit more as long as he can take the fish back home to his sick mom. Shinji also supports him, but the owner lets him take the fish without hitting him. With joy, the boys take the fish back to their home for it to be cooked for their mother. Daikichi warns them that if it was stolen, he would severely deal with them, but Gen assures him that it wasn't. Daikichi then asks Iko to cook the fish for their mom, while later, Kimi is eating. Shinji whispers in her ears to let him suck on the bones when she's done eating, but this only breaks Kimi's heart. The following day, after the boys return home from working all day, they spot the pond owner at their doorstep and quickly rush to hide on a tree. However, they have no choice but to return home and prepare for a beating. Surprisingly, the boys get hugged by their parents instead and are rewatched with rice cakes from the pond owner. At about 2 a.m. the next day, 3 American B-29s took off from their airbase in Mariana. At daybreak, Shinji shows his father the Navy ship Gen had made for him out of wood and tells him that they plan to float it on the river once Jen returns home from school. Sadly, another air raid alert was raised, but no bombs were dropped this time. After the alert is lifted, Jen heads for school and promises Shinji to sail the boat with him once he returns. On his way to school, Jen notices a B-29 bomber up ahead, but the air raid siren doesn't go off, which makes him wonder what is going on. Unknown to him, the B-29 is Enola Gay, and it releases an atomic bomb over Hiroshima in a matter of seconds. Tragedy befalls Hiroshima. Those who didn't take cover end up getting melted by the blast of the bomb. Everyone and everything is razed to the ground, and some places lit on fire. Jen survives the explosion, but the student next to him didn't. He realizes that the city is in ruins, with corpses lying around and zombies with their eyes melted out of their sockets walking around. He quickly rushes home to check up on his family, but finds his house on fire. His mom had also survived, but Daikichi, Iko, and Shinji were trapped under the rubble. Jen tries to help his mom free them, but to no avail. Sadly, Daikichi asks them to move on without them and tells Jen that he has to protect his mother and the unborn baby. With not much choice left, Jen drags his mother away with the help of Boku, who had also survived the explosion. After dropping them off by the riverside, Boku wished them good luck and heads his own way. Suddenly, Kimi is about to go into labor, so she asks Jen to find a midwife or a doctor, but Jen found no one, so his mom tells him he must do it himself. Thankfully, the baby is born, but it turns out to be a girl. Later that day, black rain, which was caused by radioactive dust, starts to fall. Jen then rushes to shade with his mom and new sister. That night, Jen is bothered by the noise coming from people who are struggling to stay alive, so he and his mom take some water to them. However, due to the radioactive poisoning, the people lose their lives. 3 days later, Kimi finds out that she can't produce milk for the baby due to her not eating. So Jen leaves to find food. He meets a few kids with rice balls and is told that an army truck is distributing food by the bridge. Jen then goes over there only to discover that the trucks are full of corpses to be disposed by the army. On the other hand, Kimi goes around asking for milk for her baby when she meets a woman who tells her to kill her baby, but ends up giving her milk. She apologizes, saying the baby only reminded her of hers, which wasn't alive anymore. He sees a soldier who claims to be cold when the weather is hot. Jen also notices that the soldier has a bloody stool and that the soldier's hair seems to be falling off. Suddenly, the soldier vomits blood and starts screaming in pain. Jen then quickly makes a makeshift stretcher and rushes the man out to what's left of the hospital. But he was too late. It turns out that the bomb had killed over 100,000 lives, but the radiation remained to wipe out the rest of them, either through leukemia or cancer. Sad and all, Jen finds his way to a mountain of bags, in which he discovers burnt rice. He then digs deeper and is glad to find good rice and pickles, which he takes back to his mother and baby sister. That night, Jen tells his mom that they need to name the baby. He wishes Tomoko would grow up well and have lots of friends, so he decides to call her Tomoko, which means friends. Much to Jen's dismay, he realizes that he's also losing his hair and cries to his mom, saying he doesn't want the same thing that happened to the soldier to happen to him. After calling on the Japanese government to surrender, they refused, and 3 days later, Nagasaki was bombed too. That was when the Japanese government agreed to surrender, ending World War II. When Kimi hears this, she gets angry at the fact that if the government had surrendered earlier, all these deaths would have been prevented. Jen then tells her not to worry and that they will need to survive. He builds them a shelter where their house once was. Worried about food and milk, a hungry child sneaks into their house to steal their meal. Jen catches him, realizing the kid looks a lot like Shinji. However, the kid's name is Ryuta Kondo. Jen and Kimi then offer him rice and ask him to join their family. The following day, Jen and Ryuta are busy advertising for work to get money for milk for Tomoko when a man comes along to offer them a job for 10 yen a day. Much to their horror, their job is to take care of a maggot-infested bomb victim. Seiji, who happens to be their employer's brother. Seiji ends up being rude, kicking Jen, and continuously throwing the book Ryuta gave him on the floor. Jen then gets annoyed and slaps him twice, preparing to leave with Ryuta when suddenly Seiji demands that they hit him more. The boys are surprised by this request, so CG tells them how out of all the people his brother had brought, they're the only ones who took better care of him and even got rid of the maggots. He pleads with them to stay, and the boys are delighted to help him even more. After gathering 100 yen from looking after CG, they promise to visit and leave for the market to buy some milk for Tomoko. The boys return with 100 yen worth of powdered milk from America, but to their dismay, they're too late and have lost Tomoko. Gen blames himself, saying he couldn't protect his father, Iko, Shinji, and now Tomoko. He spends the next day moping in sadness, despite Kimi and Ryuta's efforts to cheer him up. Later that day, both boys talk about how they might not see green in Hiroshima for 70 years. When Gen's cap flies off, Ryuta rushes to catch it and notices wheat sprouting from the ground. He calls Gen, who immediately joins him in celebration. While they're at it, Ryuta points out to Gen that his hair is growing back, and that Tomoto must have given him her hair as she left. Gen is happy to know that he'll always have a part of Tomoko with him. He also remembers his promise to Shinji, so he carves out another Navy ship to float on the river in memory of Shinji. His mom then lights the candle, and they watch the boat sail into the distance. The end. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap that bell icon to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.